All right, everybody. I'm finally back with the fourth episode. Today we are talking about my son and our story. And today with me is my beautiful fiance, Ruth.
Hi, guys.
So let's start off by saying what day he was born on.
Yes, he was born June 11th of 2018.
The first day we had him, he had to get surgery. The first day he was born.
Yes, they came in and told us that he had to have surgery to get a anostomy bag put on him. He was not born with an anus, and that was a tough time when they came into our room and told us that he had to have surgery the first day.
So it was basically he was born. I didn't even get to hold him. Nobody got to hold him. And it was just really quick stuff. You don't know what to expect when, somebody's giving birth, but you do expect as a father to get to hold your child and even a mother get to hold your child. And when you don't get to do that, it tears a little bit out of you because, you're already panicking and, you already want what's best for him.
Yes, we weren't able to hold him for almost a month, I would say.
Yeah, we waited a month before we got to hold him. We stayed at Ronald McDonald.
Yes, and we want to give them thanks for keeping us there while he was in the hospital almost about all his life, about 9 months.
Yeah, it's a good place to go. It's a bad place to go at the same time because everyone there does not want to be there. Um, it's a nice place. Like the rooms were, at least the one we had was huge. We had two, queen size beds, and they were like the temperature, the nice foamy ones. Um, Back to Alexander though.
But the funny thing was that before he was even born, before even my water broke, Jeremiah decided to go fishing with his brothers and his dad, and it was like Father's Day trip.
Yeah, it was a Father's Day trip. It was me, Tyler, Brian, and my dad. It was the worst trip ever. It was windy. It was cold. We didn't bring tents because Brian said he was gonna bring tents and like, oh, I got this, I got that, bro. Oh yeah, I got this. And then the next morning, I get a phone call from three different phones, and she's like, oh yeah, my water broke. My water broke. So Brian rushed me to the room. I got into my car. I flew to the hospital.
And the thing is that this was my first time that my water broke. With my first birth, I didn't feel what it was felt when your water broke.
So
And
you didn't know what was actually happening.
no, I thought I was peeing myself. So that was the scary part.
Yeah. So I flew there. I remember I flew to the hospital, and your sisters were there. Your dad was there. Right?
They were there later that
Oh
night.
yeah, later that day. Yeah.
Because we went Sunday morning.
And then they basically that night though they sent me home because you didn't have the surgery right away.
No.
No, it was the next morning.
They gave me steroids to try to keep the baby in there
As long as possible. Yeah. And I remember the next morning, I got a phone call, like 3-4 phone calls in the morning saying, oh, they're about to deliver, they're about to deliver. So I had to refly back to the hospital, and you had to check in, get your little badges and all that. And there was a huge line, and they were like, stop, 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 stop. I didn't stop. I just kept running through the thing, got in the elevator, went to the floor, and yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah. I had to have C-section. So we got a C-section scheduled that Monday. And the scary part is, those moms that know what the feeling is when you have a C-section is scary. With my first one, I was paralyzed. Well, not paralyzed, but basically asleep the whole time. And with Alexander, that experience with him was, I was awake.
Yeah, we also had your sister in the room with us, and that was nice.
Yes.
I'm sure that was exciting for her.
Yes. And hearing him cry and not able to have him close to my chest was the hardest thing to do. And even before they came to our room to tell us about his surgery, we weren't even able to hold him. They were able to bring him to our room and was able to, kiss him and hold his hand, do a little prayer for him.
How long was it till he had his second surgery? Do you remember?
His second surgery was his open heart surgery. And that took he was about a month and a week old.
Yeah, it felt like it was one after another. But, I mean, they waited a month. And I remember them saying, well, you guys go see him, but we recommend you don't go see him. Because his chest was open. And you could still see his heart. And we're like, oh, yeah, no. I can handle it. That's my son. I want to be in there with him. And I remember going in there, and I remember standing up on the little step stool they had there, because they had the baby really high up. And so we had to, climb on this big old step stool thing to look over him. And the first thing I seen was his chest wide open. And I swear I could see his heart just beating. And I broke down, started crying, and then I walked away because the nurse kind of grabbed my arm because she saw me crying. But it's not one experience that that you don't want anybody to go through.
Yeah, and I also want to thank my sisters, my twin sisters, that were actually there with us when he had the surgery, and they were there. They were able to see his heart beating where his chest was open. I know it's hard for them when they saw that. It was a really tough scenery or thing to see.
How many surgeries did Alexander go through?
He had about 9 surgeries. 9 surgeries before he passed.
And he was 10 months old.
No, he was only 9 months.
9 months. So 9 surgeries in 9 months? Yeah, so.
And most of his whole life, he lived in the hospital. And when we went home with him, it was about a week. I would say a week. About 2. I would say about 2, close to 2 weeks. And he ended up getting sick. And I remember that when that day he went back to the hospital, his heart pressure was going down. All his pulse was going down. And I knew something was wrong. Something was wrong. It was something off.
And he got life flighted back to Sacramento from Oroville. And it was actually the same, believe it or not, guys, the same pilot that life flighted Alexander to Sacramento also had life flighted our other son, Tyler Anthony, from Oroville to a different hospital in Sacramento. And the guy actually, he recognized me right up to get, I'm like, I was staring at him. He's like, how do I know you? And I was like, you life flighted my other son. That's the only possible, way I would know you. And he goes, that's right. I do remember you. You rode in the helicopter with us. And I was like, yeah, I did. He's like, a lot of parents don't do that, believe it or not. But Let's backtrack a little bit. Do you remember when we had that nurse? She had like blonde hair. Kristen, yeah. Remember her the first day I met her?
Yes.
She told me I couldn't do something, and I basically flipped out on her and said, that's my son. I can do whatever I want.
Yes, because it was almost a month that we weren't able to hold him.
And at that point, guys, I was just getting really frustrated.
And it was actually it was a day before his surgery.
Yeah, and I don't remember if I got to hold him that same day because I remember you did.
We both did.
Oh, we did. Okay, because I remember me telling her, I don't care right this second that I don't get to hold him, as long as she gets to hold him. And the lady, she was very calm, very professional. She was like, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be mean to you guys. I'm not trying to be rude or anything like that. I have a job, and my job is basically to make sure that your son's safe, from this point on. And I had to take a step back, and then she came back in, and she's like, well, let me see what I can do for you guys. So she ended up letting us hold Alexander. I don't even think it was that long. I think it was just like a boom, hold him, next, boom, hold him, and then out to surgery?
No, we let him rest because his surgery was the next day.
Oh, it was the next day.
Yes.
But she didn't want us holding him that long.
Yeah.
Because she wanted him to rest.
Yes.
Yeah.
She didn't want to overstress him.
And for parents who are in the hospital, it's already stressful. But there's times where you will deal with like nurses that won't be on the same page as you. And yes, they're there to help you, but at other times, there's certain nurses that don't do nowhere near as good a job as they should be doing. And we encountered one of them, or is he, one or two? There's probably two.
There was a couple nurses that were a little bit rude when you asked them a question about your son, or they would try to sugarcoat when you asked them, how he's doing today. They're just trying to make you feel
better, knowing you already kind of know the truth, but all you want to do is hear the truth. And that kind of reminds me of, we had this doctor, I can't remember his name. Do you remember his name at all? But you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had this meeting. We had this meeting because, as I recall it, she might recall it a little different. I remember Ruth calling me when I was at work. And she had called the doctors. The doctor had told her something. Do you remember what they told you?
Not really on top of my head, but it was to the sort that they were, because his insides were, he usually goes to the restroom, was getting bloated.
They weren't really, they couldn't really figure it out at this point. And with all his other health problems, it was to the point where, there's not much else we could do.
Well, he had water in his body where it couldn't release.
Yeah, and if you see the photos, he's very like swollen. You could tell like from him doing healthy to the point where you're like, oh wow, he's changing. Not only is he getting a little bit bigger because all he does is lay there, but his face is starting to spread out a little bit, and it's really difficult to see.
And that's when you know something was wrong with him.
Yeah, I personally had called the doctor after she had called me because she was crying when she called me. And I was like, I'll call just to get the full story. And I called the doctor and I said, look, what's going on? And at that point, he was like, I don't know if there's anything else we could do. And I was like, what are you saying? He's like, well, I'm thinking that we need a meeting. And, when you're a parent, when you hear him say, I'm thinking we need a meeting or we need a meeting, that's probably not a good sign. So me, I want a straight answer, and that's the kind of person. I'm like, is he gonna die? Is he dying? And he told me, he did tell me, he's dying. There's not much else I could do for him. But he was like, come to the hospital, let's regroup, and let's see if we can find another plan. And I think that was his thing of saying like, trying to get me to calm down and relax and don't fly to the hospital, even though I was already gonna do that. I went back to my station. I worked in the paint department at Home Depot, and I asked my manager to. I asked her. I said, "Hey, Kim, can you get somebody else over here and help me in my area? I'll finish my shift, but if I handle with customers, I won't make it. I'll just break down." And she said, "What's going on, Jeremiah? What's going on?" And I told her the truth, and then it was so hard to look at her in her face, and I just started busting down crying. And Kim was like, that was the manager's name. She goes, "Just go home. We got you. Take as much time as you need off. We got you. I'll cover for you. Just go." And I went, and we headed back to the hospital. And how many days later did they take to actually get the meeting going? Was it the next day, or was it?
I'm pretty sure it was like the next day.
It was the next day. We had We had the parents in there. We had my sister, Tiffany, on the phone. And then we had all the doctors that ever worked with them. And the counselor lady, right? And the doctor we had was a very young guy. He looked like he was probably straight out of med school. And it got to the point where I wanted him to tell me, what was going on. You remember that?
Yeah, it was very hard to hear. Very hard to hear what a parent never wants to hear the words.
Look, the doctor told me, we all love Alexander. He's obviously been in and out of our lives. And, they come and go, but we don't. So the doctors, they're like his second family. They all take turns, which to me that irritates me. And I get it because, that's their job. That's their career. They go home to their families. But, when you're a parent and you're in that situation, you're dealing with, 5, 6 different doctors, right? And then one goes on leave and, then you're kind of mad at her because she's taking her pregnancy leave and, you're not really mad at her, but, you're just frustrated because you want somebody to be with that. And that's how we chose this one doctor. We wanted him to be our primary doctor. And because, like I said, he was young. But when I tell you that he did everything in his power, he did. Because I watched the other doctors give up and tell us no. And he was like, "No, let's try this. Let's try this." It got to the point where, at that meeting where he said, "Guys, I'm sorry. He's not going to make it." And he started busting down crying. I've never seen a doctor in my life. And my mom said she never seen a doctor in her life cry. And he was just, like I said, he was young. He had little kids too, he told me. And, I think that's what was really hard for him. I think he was learning.
Yeah, the words that I remember from him was, "He's suffering."
Yeah, that was the words. He said, "I'm suffering." Or I'm suffering, he's suffering. He said, "You guys are all suffering."
Yeah.
He's like, "But I think it's time to let him go. Let him go home. I think we get the paperwork going and let him go home in peace. Let him go home and be home with you guys." And I started crying. I gave him a hug. I don't know if you remember that. I was hugging him. Yeah. And then after that, it was kind of like, I don't know how you felt, but I kind of felt like empty. I still feel empty. Till today, I do. I really do. We were actually watching, a little off topic, we were watching Boy Meets World last night. And I swear to God, when I tell you this episode, it hit home. It really did. They had their son and they're fighting for their lives. He was just born. You could see their face expressions. And then you kind of go back to what our face expressions looks like. And I swear, man, it was kind of, the father was doing the same thing I was doing. He was pacing. He was trying to figure out how to talk to your son. Because you want to say the right things, but you don't know what to say. Because you wish that you were in his position. Because you would give anything to him. And I remember, every time he needed a blood transplant, I was like, "Take my blood. I'm O negative. I'm pretty sure that's universal, right?" And they were like, "No, we got blood. We have the blood." It's just because as a parent, you want to do anything in your power to make sure that your child's going to be okay. So, but back on the topic, we get him home, right?
Yeah, we gave him home for about a week and a half.
About a week
almost
and a half. I had some really good support um, for a while, right? Would you agree?
Yeah.
We did. Um, it was, I first of all, I want to give a quick little shout out to Home Depot, right? They filled up our refrigerator without us knowing that they were gonna come by. They stopped by our house. They filled up our whole refrigerator with food. They told me that they were thinking about me and I might not be at work there, but I made a lot of friends there. I still talk to some of them. Yeah, I mean we had some support in that area. We had good friends. Yeah, so he's there for about a week, right? That's what he had said. He was there for about a week. He did the live flight, and then he came back for what, one night before he passed away?
For the week that he came, it was that Sunday we came down to Bakersfield to visit our family, and my family did a prayer for him. And I would say it would be like 3 days after that, he got sick, and that's when we took him in because he was getting swollen all over his body, and I noticed it on his face first. And when we took him in, they're all like, "Well, we see something," and we end up seeing that he had pneumonia. When we flighted him back to Sutter, they confirmed it that he did have pneumonia, so they were trying to treat that.
Okay, and he got pneumonia. The thing about this is the time, right, babe, that it was pouring down raining.
Yes.
It was the winter time. It was cold. It was pouring down raining. They had released him. They already told us he was dying. So we're trying to juggle this weather. We're trying to juggle him. And our house at the time was really small, okay? And we have two other kids. So we don't know if he got it from one of the other kids or if he just got it because he was really, he was already dying and he was already sick. So, I mean, I'm not trying to be blunt or nothing, but I'm just trying to let them know that this is what happened, right? I mean, it was raining. It was cold. We still had to be adults. We still had to do other errands. We had to switch off who's watching him for that week. You know what I'm saying? Like, because we had to get out of the house, right? We couldn't just stick to him 100% of the time because we were going to go crazy because, we're human and we need to be outside for a little bit. So we would switch off for a little bit. But, yeah, so he has ammonia. And then what? What did they tell you? Because you went to the hospital. I stayed home cleaning the house.
Yeah, I drove back to Sutter. He got air flighted. I actually beat the helicopter there. So he stayed in the hospital, I would say, a week.
You beat the helicopter there?
Yeah.
See, I didn't even know that. So you beat the helicopter, and that's an hour drive from Orville? Hour and 20 minutes from Orville, Sacramento? Uh-huh. Okay.
When he got there, like say he stayed there for a week. When he came home, it was actually my 8-year-old. Well, now he's 9. His birthday. He came home on his birthday. So we were trying to plan to do a little, a cake for him and
trying to jug.
Trying
to pay attention to Jaden and Alexander because we still you have other kids. You still want to show the other kids that you're still there. I mean, by the way, I think our kids did a very, very awesome job for understanding. Like, we gave a lot of our time at that time to Alexander. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, they suffered a lot because we had to go through it. I mean, I think I had Tyler Anthony was learning how to walk at my other sister's place when she had to watch him. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. So he was on and off learning how to walk over there. Then we were dealing with Alexander, and then Jaden was going back and forth to, staying with my parents in Orville and going to school and doing all that, and he was very, I'm sure he was hurting, but he was very understanding.
Yes, he was.
So
I didn't know he was hurting inside, though.
Yeah, he was. Oh, yeah. And so we get to, what was it? So you get him. They decide to bring him home, right?
Bring him home on a hospice.
Yeah, on a hospice. And at that point, when they say hospice, you already know.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be long.
And it did hurt me a little bit because the thing is that they had done a little cake at your mom's house, and I had to stay behind with Alexander because he was on respiratory.
He was doing his treatment for his breathing.
Yeah, well, he had oxygen
Yeah.
on him because he couldn't breathe without the oxygen. So I had to stay behind, and seeing him in there was really hard.
Yeah, we're talking about a kid who, like I said, he had 9 surgeries in 9 months. All his whole life, only thing he knew were surgeries. So when we had that meeting, we forgot to tell you guys this part, but we decided at that point not to bring him back if he was to go because he's already suffered enough. And, they were talking about, they might have to do CPR and break the ribs. And I was like, at that point, I was like, no, he's not. You guys already told us he's gonna go already, And they're like, and it was crazy because at that same point though, guys, they were like talking like, oh well, can we use some of his body parts as, it would help, we'll get better understanding of this and this and that, which for the parents who do that, that's awesome. You guys are brave, but I was like, hell no, right? I said, he's already been poked enough. He's already gone through way too much. Let him rest. When he's going, we'll get him cremated, and let him, finally be at peace. But you were watching him.
Yeah, and at that night when you came back, it was really late, and you had came and was like, "Why is this machine beeping, or why is its oxygen super low?" And at that time, we were all kind of panicking and trying to see what was wrong with him. But we knew.
Yeah, we knew what was happening, and when she's saying like, well, why is he doing that? If you guys are picturing me trying to be like angry and all that, you guys are probably right. At that moment, I probably was rude about it. I probably was angry about it because I'm watching my son die. And now, should I have taken out on her? No. But unless you guys are in my position, in my spot as a parent, you guys don't know what it's like. Hey, you should know this, right? You should know that. And I already know, but I'm trying to think positive. I'm trying to think, I'm trying to be in my own little fairyland, I guess, because, I know what's going to happen, but I don't want it to happen. We finally get the breathing under control, right? That night, it was back to normal.
No, it was low.
It was low, but it was starting to go back before we went to bed. It wasn't until that night, remember? I was laying in bed. Yeah, I was laying in bed, and they started beeping. You remember that? The night he passed away?
It was like you had seen him, or you were sitting right next to him when this machine was beeping.
No, I was not. I was laying in bed. I remember. I was laying in bed. Yes. I was laying in bed next to you. I jumped off the bed, and I went over there, and I said, I told you, it's beeping, it's beeping, it's beeping. And then he started doing that thing with his face, remember?
Mm-hmm, when it got swollen.
Yeah, when it got swollen. But then he was trying to get he was gasping for air. Remember? And then I ran out. I ran out to my parents' house, and you were holding him. And then hospice came, and that's when they told us. And then that same night, we just celebrated Jaden's birthday. And then that night, it was about midnight almost, right? Then that's when he went. So it's like he waited for his brother to have his birthday and have his own day. And then he went. And, yeah. So.
Well, he actually was in my arms hospice has told him, and to tell him it was okay, that it was okay, that mommy knew
That it,
if it was his time, it's his time to, if he wanted to go, that it was okay, that mommy was going to be okay.
and then, I mean, I can't really remember exactly what happened because I think I was crying too much, and then I just remember he had stopped breathing, and then when he stopped breathing, I just remember I was holding. At one point, I got to hold him. I just tell him, "Come on, come back, son. Just come back. Come be here with Dad."
Yeah, as soon as we saw him stop breathing, hospice made sure if he wasn't breathing anymore, so we took all his machines off.
Yeah, they took all the machines off.
Before we passed him to you.
Yeah, well, they took all the machines off, and then when I got him, the lady starts going to the kitchen and starts dumping his pills and all his medication, which, I know she has a job, but at the same time, I was angry at her. Like, why are you in my house? Just leave now. Yeah, like I said, it was a horrible experience. Um, we held him probably a couple hours before the guy came and picked him up for the funeral.
I actually was holding him. I went to bed with him
Until
the guy came and picked him up. Because the thing is that Tyler Anthony wasn't able to say goodbye to him, so I laid him next to him.
yeah, and then when the guy did come, I was outside probably. I walked him outside, and I remember just crying. I remember I was just crying and crying, and I walked the guy outside, and I just remember I just watched him put him in there and drive off with him, and I stayed outside for a while because I was hoping he was going to come back. And yeah, I mean, the only other part about that story that gets worse is when we're having the funeral, and I'm watching, Jaden cry, my oldest, for his little brother, and there's nothing I could do to make him feel better because he's hurting just as much as we are hurting. And there's still some times, wouldn't you say, that he still cries for him?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I know that we do. We think of him every single day.
and there's not a day that goes by that we don't think about him, or you could catch us crying. I mean, like I said, when we were watching Boy Meets World last night, when I started watching that scene, I swear it just I don't know, it was like a gut punch. I started about to cry, and then I turned around, and if I'm about to cry, I know she's gonna cry, so I turned around and there she is. You know what I mean? So it's hard because certain things that didn't get to us gets to us.
Yeah, because I know families that have lost children, kids, babies. I know you guys are going through a lot of pain like we are. And you guys, I think like why us? Why my son?
I always say from the get go that I've been a jinx my whole life. You know what I'm saying? Like from time I got taken away from my family, not because of what I did wrong, but because what they did wrong. But you don't think about that, right?
Yeah, and that can be another.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, like, I've always told myself that I was kind of more of a jinx, you know. But yeah, so I mean, we had his funeral, and we've been coping ever since. But I do want to thank my parents for being there the day past. Tiffany, Justin, Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that was probably the hardest person.
Evan.
And Evan, yeah. I know for Anthony, I know that would have to be the hardest thing that he's ever done. And, and I always love every single one of them for being there, and being there for us at that time. And we might not get along all the time, but, Ruth and I are still coping with everything that we're trying to deal with, and and certain people might remind us of him. I know when I look at my son Tyler Anthony, when I look at him and I'm like, I see his brother, and to be honest with you, sometimes I give him an extra hug, or I find myself kissing him a little bit more at nighttime, just because he looks so much like his little brother.
Yeah.
So, with that, guys, I kind of want to say, thank you guys for listening. Please like and subscribe. Thank you, babe, for being on the show. I know that you kind of probably really didn't want to be on the show, but it wouldn't be his story without his mom being on it. And if you guys have any questions about the show, when I release it, drop the comments. If you guys want answers, more answers, you want something else, let us know. And we will get back to you guys.
And just know, to all those families, there's always somebody there. Don't try to keep your feelings trapped, because it's going to hurt more in the end.
Come on. So if you guys are angry about something after you guys lose a child, talk it out. You know what I mean? Trust me.
If you guys want to reach out to us, I know there's other family, other mothers, other dads that are out there that have lost
moms,
child.
Dads.
Reach out.
Don't hesitate.
Yes, because don't let the bad things influence you guys, because you guys are in pain. I really thought that me or Jeremiah would have ended up killing ourselves, or be alcoholics, or look into drugs.
We did none of those things.
Or even split. There was times where
we've been pretty close.
It was close.
It's been pretty damn close. I mean, let's be honest, right? If we're gonna be honest to ourselves, let's be honest to everybody else. There's still times where you and I are at each other's throats. Yes. Now, it's when you guys are going through something like this and you guys are trying to recover, every little thing is gonna irritate you guys. It really is. So if that's from family living with you guys, if your kids are driving you guys is crazy, or if it's something that somebody didn't even do wrong, drop a piece of trash or something, things just click and get you so angry. And right now, Ruth and I are learning to talk it out. If we don't talk it out, I'm in my garage. Like if I get frustrated over nothing and I know I'm getting irritated, I go work out in the garage, or I'm watching TV in my garage. I spend more time in the garage now than I do anywhere else.
Yeah, just try to find hobbies or something to distract you guys. For me, it was work, going back to work. So with that said, you guys, just like Jeremiah said, leave a comment if you guys want more, or reach out.
And again, please tell people about my show. It's called The Jeremiah Show on YouTube and Twitter. It's Jeremiah Show. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Tell your families. And if there's anybody that's going through this, let them know that I got the show. If they want to talk about it, I'm here. And thank you guys.
We'll see you guys later.
Bye.